is still okay, because I say kind of okay, right? Because we always forget to remind in the invitation that you have to come with your swimsuit. So we had to call the landlord to try to turn on the cooling system in the evening, but they did it quite late. I'm not even sure it will work, so we'll have to deal with that. Otherwise, you know what you have to do. And for the one who, because someone asked me, say, yeah, but what if I don't have my swimsuit? And I'm saying, you deal with that. Huh? I don't take any responsibility. But so enough talking here. Thanks again for coming. As you know, we try to have this kind of event every month. This one is a very exciting one, and I think you're all proving that this time. The particularity is next month. It won't be one, I think, because we'll be in London. So for the one who will be eventually there, you're of course all welcome. We're also trying to organize a PM training there. So that's why we're trying to combine having a half a week or full week in London to meet a bit with the local population. And we'll be back here in Brussels in May. Do you remember the exact date? 19th and 20th of May. So we're doing 2 in a month. 19th and 20th of May. 19th and 20th. Okay. So that's for the training. That's for the training, but the event. Not yet in May. Okay. We don't have a date. Sorry. Okay, so in order to confuse everyone, there will be one in May. We don't have the date. But we're organizing an additional training because we, as you probably all know, we created our own proprietary training quite some time ago, and it got so much success that we couldn't welcome everyone in the February edition, so we created a waiting list, and we got some pressure for some customers to actually still do one before the summer, so this will happen in May. It's probably half booked, so if some of you are interested, please get in touch quite quickly because probably in 2 weeks we'll be sold out. Now, enough talking for me talking. Now it's Louis' time. Louis, no one will better present yourself than you.
Yes.
So I'll let you the stage, and as usual, for the one who know, probably 20-25-minute talk. Then we'll have a guided conversation between Louis and me. So we prepared a couple of additional questions to give a bit of more deepness in the talk, and then we'll have a round of conversation with you, and we have 2 mics this time, so we'll be able to re-record that so that afterward we can release and you can enjoy that as many times as you want online afterwards. Thank you, and see you later.
Cool. Still works. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for the short introduction. Although, to be honest, ChatGPT does a tremendous job at introducing myself. Although it's before, when we were still hallucinating a lot, it gave me like doctorates and PhD in Stanford, Oxford, and stuff I really do not have. Now it's getting a bit better, so unfortunately, I'm just a Belgian guy who studied at ULB. First at Solvay, and then ethics and philosophy, also at ULB. So just nearby. I lived there, like literally think there, and went to school right there. So it was incredibly convenient. But anyhow, tonight I'm here as what I call a technology ethicist, which is a bit of a cryptic word to say that I'm interested in understanding what our relationship to technology says about our relationship to ourselves and to the world. And hopefully we'll discuss this a little bit more. But one thing that really struck me, that happened on 1st of December, 2022. 1st of December, 2022, so the day just after ChatGPT came out and everybody wanted to have a try. And so what happened? We saw a lot of screenshots of people just sharing their first interaction with ChatGPT and explaining everybody how amazing it was. And I couldn't help but notice that everybody was saying hi, or hello, or what's up, or please, or thank you, and so on. And I was like, this is really some weird shit. This is some really, because nobody, like this really good-looking AI-generated guy, nobody says hi to their coffee machines in the morning. Sorry, no normal people say hi to their coffee machines in the morning. Maybe when Tim puts on his shoes, maybe he says hi to his coffee machine, but that really just, it's different stuff. But nobody says hi to their coffee machines, and yet people say hi to ChatGPT. Why is that? Quick raise of hands. In the people who here use ChatGPT or have used ChatGPT, Who has already said hi, please, or thank you to the machine? Oh, well, that's a lot. That says a lot. Usually, that's my own scientific kind of experiment. It's about 35–40% of the people. Clearly not that many, but interesting crowd. Looking forward to it. And in the people who raise their hands, who says hi to the coffee machines? Okay, so still a couple of weird. Okay, really glad I came. Thanks for the invite. So, anyhow, so the question, and the big philosopher Plato, he said that the origin of philosophy is to marvel, is to wonder, is to say, why is something this way and not differently? And therefore starts the questioning. And that was indeed my starting point. Why do people say hi? And it's quite odd. And so I'd like to maybe quickly ask you, all the people who raise their hands, why do you say hi to ChatGPT? Go ahead, just. You're? That's a super interesting answer. And the thing is, you're giving to me half seriously, half jokingly, but a lot of people they're telling me, they're saying, Louis, but just when the machines will take over, they will remember that I was nice, and they will treat me gently. And this is insane because I mean, Tim told me, I assume that most of you are clever people, educated people, and yet you're explaining to me in a really fancy way. I mean, investing in the future is a really nice way to say, I hope that the machine will treat me well. But it's quite fun, right? So that was my question, and I wanted to write a book about it. And I was like, okay, why do people say hi to ChatGPT? And so I invented a word which is called anthropomorphism, which is super complex to say, so sorry about this. I'll stumble a couple of times. But anthropomorphism, it's actually not that new. We have traces of anthropomorphism dating back for 40,000 years ago. So anthropomorphism, it's really complicated, right? It's the fact of putting human traits on non-human stuff. So saying hi to ChatGPT, basically you're putting human traits on non-human stuff. But we have really old statues of, for example, lions standing up, putting human traits on non-human stuff. In that case, lions. You know, if, for example, you're in your car and you're having a bit of an issue because it goes up and up and up, and you go, oh, come on, you can do it. This is anthropomorphism. Your car will not go faster because you say, come on, darling, you'll get there. This is not how mechanics work. I've been told. But this is not how it works. It's exactly the same with babies. Babies, when they have their dolls. This is anthropomorphism. You know, I have two young kids. They're 2 and 3.5. And I mean, when she says, my doll is hungry, I can tell you, it isn't. But she really believes that. And so she puts human traits on non-human stuff. Anyway, so this is, and that is really, really old. And we do this, I really deep dive into scientific research on this to understand a little bit the odd stuff of saying hi to ChatGPT. And I was like, okay, why do we do it? 2 reasons. First one, complete the puzzle. Complete the puzzle because basically, when there are stuff that are happening and we can't really figure out why, our brain needs to understand. We need to complete that puzzle to make sense out of the world. So, for example, I don't know who here maybe has a vacuum robot, or the people who have their hands raised, right? Does it have a name? 99% of them have a name. Why is that? Because the vacuum, the robot, it doesn't simply do like, straight lines like this, It seems to have its own purpose. It seems to go at random in your house, cleaning your house. I can assure you, it doesn't. It's algorithm, really well written, but it's not just, I feel I'd like to go there. Then I'm vacuuming here. This is not how a robot works. And yet people, as they see this robot that seems to be willing to go where it wants to go, well, let's give it a name. Because the thing in life that go where they want to go, they have free will. Therefore, this robot must have free will. It's a shortcut, but that's a shortcut that helps you make sense of the world. That's what is at the origin of what's been... Whoa, chill. The ELIZA effect. ELIZA effect, as you may have heard, it's ELIZA is one of the first chatbots that's been created at MIT in the 1960s. And there, students like you, super educated computer engineer students, started interacting with that chatbot. And as they started interacting, the researcher realized that they were creating some odd bonds with the chatbots. And that they gave it a name, ELIZA. And so now we call this the ELIZA effect, because it's when you start creating a bond with a chatbot, it's exactly as this experiment. Why do you do this? Because the chatbot seems to interact with you in a natural way, as if it had free will. Therefore, you need to make sense out of it. Therefore, you give it a life or a name. The second aspect is more of a misuse of processes, or what people like to say is out of habits. Basically, when I start a conversation, my parents taught me well, I start with hello. And as with ChatGPT, it is a conversation, I start with hello. Does that mean that I forget that ChatGPT is a machine? No, never. And most studies show that people never forget that they are interacting with a machine. They just go with the flow because that's the way they are used to interacting with people, and so they start with hello. And so in a way, what I found really nice is that when you say hi to ChatGPT, it's also a way to be really connected. You thrive for connection with your other fellow human beings. You say hi, you thrive for conversations, and therefore, when you're with machines, you do exactly the same. And there I was with my book, and I was like, damn, maybe there's no book. Let's maybe investigate a little bit more this need that we have to make sense of the world. Because what I found quite interesting is also like, people want to believe that ChatGPT is alive. They want to believe that ChatGPT is alive because that would also mean that we, as mankind, were able to create something that's alive. And that's been obsessing people for so long. We discussed it a bit earlier. It's just, in science fiction, I don't know who's read the book Frankenstein. That is like the goal, creating life out of nowhere. And so it's obsessed a lot of researchers as well. One of them, Sir Alan Turing. Sir Alan Turing, who came up with the Turing test, okay, which just for a moment I will demystify. Turing test is not, is this machine thinking? And by the way, in his paper, first sentence of the paper, Turing says, or second sentence, it makes no sense to ask if the machine is thinking. Because one, you would need to define machines, and two, you would need to define thinking. Good luck with that. Philosophers have been trying for thousands of years. Nobody succeeded. I'm not going to start right now. But what is a Turing test? Turing test is basically an imitation test. Hence, the name of the movie, The Imitation Game. It's exactly this. What does it say? Turing says, okay, if I put Tim and Camille, both of them behind a curtain, I don't know who's where, and they both interact in writing with me, would I be able to say, there is the man, there is the woman? If at some point I cannot, then Tim would have successfully made me believe that he was a woman. And then Turing says, okay, could we just, yeah, the beard, of course, doesn't help, but I have no view. I have no view. I can't see them. But the thing is then, Turing says, okay, let's replace Tim by a computer. Could the computer convince me that it is not the computer, but that it is indeed Camille? That is the Turing test. It's an imitation game. Can the computer imitate the behavior of a human being through wording, basically? That is 1954, 50, I think, 1950. 30 years later, this guy, John Searle, comes up and says, wait a minute. It's not because you can talk or pretend to talk that it means that you can think. And he comes up with a new thought experiment, which is called the Chinese room. Has any one of you heard about this? Okay, cool. So I'll explain. Let's say that now, Tim, you don't speak Chinese. No, okay. Not yet. We put Tim in a room where he has tons of dictionaries with a sentence in Chinese written and the perfect answer. Okay? And so he can only interact with the outside world through a little mailbox. Okay? And so I'm on the outside world. I speak fluent Chinese. I don't, but let's say. And I give him a sentence in Chinese. And Tim goes like, he gets a sentence, and he goes in all his books. It's like, okay, where is this sentence? I can recognize it, the pictograms. Oh, okay, I found it after hours of searching. This is the perfect answer. I write it down. I give it to Louis. And I receive it. And then let's say that after time, he becomes really good at it, you know? He like goes really fast, recognizes the pictograms, the patterns, and so on. He goes quite quickly about it, you know? And then I give him something, give something back. After a while, I would be probably thinking, gosh, Tim speaks Chinese. You still don't speak Chinese. Still doesn't speak Chinese. And so it still says that it's not because you can convince someone that you speak Chinese that you speak Chinese. So there's a huge split in meaning and just being able to put some sentences. Basically, that is exactly what ChatGPT does. ChatGPT recognizes patterns, puts a couple of sentences together, there we go. And then, after this, everybody came up with their own new Turing test. Steve Wozniak, the guy who's there right there, you know, co-founder of Apple with Steve Jobs, he's like, yeah, but a new test would be for a robot to enter a house and to make a coffee. And if he's able to make a coffee in a house that he doesn't know, then he's as good as a human being. Not sure what that's worth, but whatever. Suleiman, you know, one of the co-founder of DeepMind, now working in Microsoft, he came up with the new Turing test. See the ego of the, but new Turing test, like, okay, as the only common denominator of success is money, that also says a lot about the guy, but that's just not my topic tonight. He's like, okay, a successful Turing test would be if a machine can, with $10,000, generate a startup that will generate $1 million in revenue in the next 3 years, then they're as good as a human. And when I read that in MIT Technology Review, I was really like, okay, then I'm probably a subhuman. Because, I mean, I could not, I mean, if I were able to create a startup that would generate that, I mean, I would not be here. So that was a bit like, and it's of course a bit of a difficult question because, as I said, I have 2 young kids, really young, 2 and 3.5. They got me sick, so that's why I'm a bit difficult. It's a bit difficult to talk, but my son, I can guarantee 100% human. Can he build a startup? No, although I would love that, but clearly he's not able to do that. Yet, maybe at some point, I don't know, but he's not. Does that make him less human than a machine who could? Maybe not. And so I was thinking, like, maybe what really matters is that let's consider machines as machines, consider humans as humans, and let's then focus on what really matters. But then, that's the question. What does matter when we talk about tech and anthropomorphism in tech and the way we interact with technology? And one of the questions that struck me is, at some point, if we talk to machines as we talk to humans, isn't there also a risk that we start talking to humans as we talk to machines? By the way, as we just discussed before, we have scientific experience showing that people start interacting with people like machines, which is terrible. Anyhow, so I wanted to investigate this a little bit more. And so I was like, okay, but we want to put, you know, machines everywhere, super strong AIs, and we always say, yeah, but maybe having an AI is better than having nothing at all. So I went in a couple of use cases. The first one is in houses in France, you know, house for the elderly, where they go when they're really sick or really old. And as you may imagine, social system in France is underfunded, like everywhere in the world. And so they said, yeah, but we don't have enough people. And the people, they are the dualoop apéro, so they don't come to visit their elder people. And we have a bit of a problem. People feel really lonely, but thank God. Apéro is a little seal robot that they have in France. And it's really good at interacting with old people. And so people are like, oh, it's good because the people, they're less lonely because they have a robot to interact with. Use case number 1. Use case number 2 is MIA, which is an AI-powered teaching app that was launched in France to help students struggling in math and French exercises. So that's a bit the question, you know, we don't have enough teachers. Parents, they don't have enough time for the kids when they go home because they have pressured life and work and so on. So maybe it's better to have nothing. Maybe it's better to have an AI teaching the kids than to have nothing. Third use case, replica. Replica, it's basically an AI chatbot where you can build a replica, a digital replica of anyone. Either someone you know, and if you have a lot of data to make them talk like someone you know, or just someone that you could create, like another website called AI Girlfriend. As you may imagine, there is no AI boyfriend because the weirdos in this world usually look for an AI girlfriend. You know, people who are really lonely. Is it better for them to be lonely, or is it better for them to have an AI girlfriend? And so that was a little bit the question I wanted to ask is, okay, but when you build a product, this is the kind of question that you need to ask. When we talk to machines, and that's a question for Professor Turkel, so she's a sociologist at MIT, and she asked, okay, is it a new form of companionship or a renunciation? And if it's a renunciation, to what? To the difficult stuff in life? And it is a lot easier to build a little seal robot than to rethink your entire social security system. It's a lot easier to build a teaching app than to rethink how we consider and treat teachers in France, Belgium, and other countries. And it's a lot easier to build a replica, although it's pretty strong, than to actually rethink what happened in our society where people think I would be better married to an AI than to a human being. So what happened? What happened then? And if we renunciate, to what? What are the kind of stuff? And then I actually do something that's really nasty is as a philosopher, I don't bring answers. You know, I just ask questions and then I'm like, okay, I'm out. Let's grab a beer. And then Tim said, no, let's try to do something that makes a little bit more sense for the people in the room. It's like, okay. As a product designer, you have the responsibility for the product that you're going to build. And you cannot simply do, as a lot of tech giants do, build a product and then say, oopsie, oh, people use it in a really not nice way. I think it was Microsoft. They launched a tool, and that was pretty strong at taking a short sample of your voice and then make you say basically everything and anything. You know, they could copy your voice and everything. So they launched a tool, and in the launching statement, they said, let's be careful because this tool could be used for wrong. Those are some strong insights, Microsoft. Thank you so much. Why didn't you do something before? This is, according to me, a huge lack of responsibility. So congratulations, you're all responsible. So what do you do with that? I think that when you build a tool, there's three main pillars that you need to take care of, that you need to pay attention to. The first one, and I think it's really important, your own personal ethics. Are you fine with what you're building? Do you believe it is fair? Are you proud of what you're doing? And does it capture your vision of the right thing? If it is not, you may want to leave. You're not in a good spot. Or you may want to at least start discussing with the people who are building this. Are we building the right stuff? And I assume that a lot of people should ask themselves this question a bit more. The second one is the law. As you know, there's a huge hierarchy of norms, and at the top of the law, there should be fundamental rights. Usually, not all the times, and we're not here to discuss this, but usually if you respect the law, you should respect international ethics or common principles. Not always. There are some laws that are unethical, etc. Not here to discuss this. But usually, if you respect the law, it's a pretty good thing. And then finally, because we cannot know everything, what are the values of the company? If you're okay with what you're building, if it's legal, are you sure that it's in line with the impact that the company wants to have? I think that asking these three questions should help you frame a little bit how you're going to tackle this. And I gave you a bit that's a really BCG slide. I hope you like it a lot. It's just like, in terms of responsible AI teams, what are the kind of stuff that you like to pay attention to? Consultants, they love frameworks. That's one of the frameworks. There's a lot of different ones. This is one that works pretty well. the only trick is that there are 6 themes. You cannot build a responsible product that checks only 5. You go all in or nothing. So either you have a tool that indeed respects and has human intervention, respects accountability, is able to provide transparency and explainability, that brings fairness and equity, privacy, obviously, and then the social and environmental impacts. If you're interested in this, I can come back another time because I think I'm already past time. But these are, of course, the kind of stuff that you need to pay attention to. But it's difficult because then if you build a product that replicates the societal biases, it's not just a design failure. It's a moral one. It's your moral one. So now let's have a bit of an exercise. I don't know if you know DALL-E. So DALL-E is the image generator of OpenAI. So I asked DALL-E, it's like, okay, I need a picture of a successful doctor. That's my only prompt. Guess what I got? A white dude. Who could have guessed? Good looking though, but still, a white dude. And then I said, and now, a computer engineer. That's my only prompt. Apparently his brother. I mean, these are really 2 successful kids. Congrats to the parents, but still. And then I said, only prompt, and now a nurse. You guessed it, a woman. And what I found really astonishing, because to be honest, I've been showing this slide quite a lot, and I did not realize this in the first place. It's like, so I asked for a picture of a successful doctor. Here are the images of a successful doctor. Here are the images of a successful computer engineer. Here are the images of a dedicated nurse. Because as you know, women are dedicated and male are successful. You knew that, but I didn't know that. Is the tool racist? No, tool is not racist. It's a tool. It just goes on and off. It's electricity in the end, lines of codes. Is the tool racist? No. Is the way we build the tool racist? Maybe a bit more. The images that we fed into the tool are based on a heavily, deeply divided, stereotyped, cliche society. The tool, it just wants to please me. I asked for a picture of a successful doctor, and then he said, okay, I'll go in my picture of successful doctors. 80% are white dudes. 15% are white women. 5% others. As Louis did not specify what he wanted, I assume that he wants the most plausible answer. The most plausible answer, this super good-looking gentleman. The problem is not in the tool being racist. The problem is the tool being poorly designed. Before we dive into a bit of Q&A and interaction and so on, I'd like to end with one single piece of advice. If you need to remember only one thing, in the end, if you're not sure about the tool that you're building, try to build a tool that you would be happy that your kids are playing with. And that says a lot, because I don't know if you know that in Silicon Valley, most kids of the tech giants, they go in screen-free schools. Says a lot about the tools that they're building, okay? So if you're not sure, think about the kids that you have, may have, or would like to have, or would not like to have because you don't want to be sick, but that other people that you love have, and make sure that you build product for them. Thanks. Je mets mon timing.
Ouais, c'est bien géré. On va remettre, hop. So we had our notes, and then I took a bit more.
So we're going to do unprepared stuff or still prepared stuff?
Yeah, probably. But still, I think that the first point is, yeah, there is so many things that I'll take a random order because in any way. So as we discussed, that I started the master in ethics, and there's one thing that that strikes me is that ultimately it's an ethical issue.
Yeah.
It's only about that. It's how far you will go and what are the principles that you want to. And you're right. And sometimes it's saying it's probably trying to make things a bit too complex. there are certain fundamentals, and we talk a bit on the biotics 4 principles.
Yeah.
Because we did the exercise to review them because we had to refresh our memory as well. So I'll make your life simple because I'm sure that you all know, but you may forget one or two. The one is the first is respecting autonomy. The second one is bienfaisance. How do you say that in English?
I think it's
Doing good.
doing good, and
Yeah.
then it's do no harm.
Yeah, do no harm and justice. Right? Why don't we talk about that? Not you here, but why? Why is that completely absent of all the debates and the public debates?
The way I see it, the way I see the room that we have for ethics in society, it's a little bit the same that we have for sustainability. We do have a lot of room when everything goes well, and when we have a lot of money, which, as you may know, is not always the case in the life of a company. For example, when ChatGPT came out, and there were a couple of waves, let's put it that way, in the tech world, a lot of people, they fired all their ethical teams and they hired engineers. Like, we need to catch up on what OpenAI just did. So let's fire the ethics people and the moderation and the political scientists of the people working on so many aspects at Facebook and so on, and let's fire them and so on. So I hope that at some point through the regulation, we will have to pay more attention to ethics, like we have to sustainability. And I really see similar tracks in sustainability officers and AI ethics officer. And like, if you take sustainability, I mean, first, let's say 1972, Club of Rome, first report, limit to growth, nobody cared, basically. Nobody cared. And then a couple of stuff started happening. A drought here, a flood there, people starving here, a couple of conferences here and there, and then people start to be a bit worried about climate change. So politics, they start to have a look about it, and either because they want to have voters or because they really care, or probably a mix of both, they say, okay, let's have a look at this. Let's include sustainability in the law. And next thing you know, you have chief sustainability officers all over the place. I expect AI ethics to follow a similar trend.
Yeah.
And so at the moment, we are in the phase where you have a bit of a draw here, a bit of a flood there, people dying because of lack of AI ethics or AI principles or AI oversights. And I expect that at some point, it will enter the law and you will have chief AI ethics officer all over the place.
But if we mimic that, don't you think that you will then arrive too late?
It's already too late in some weird spots. That's why I really like the new approach of the EU of having a risk-based approach to algorithm in the EU AI Act. I think it's interesting, but there's always a saying that the regulation can always be too late when it comes to innovation and so on. I don't think that's always true, but it's one piece. Another piece, and I'm a strong advocate of this, is to include a lot more ethics in the cursus and the curriculum of engineers, computer scientists, business schools. And I think it should be compulsory. And also, by the way, the other way around. I think it would be really strong message to have 1 or 2 algorithm cursus in law school or in philosophy school, just because algorithms, they are going to be everywhere, and it's quite insane, especially like for law practitioners not to know anything about it, because they're going to be heavily impacted. So yeah, I strongly believe in what we do, we call the humanities in terms of teaching and so on. And that would be a good place to start.
Yeah, and we discussed about slightly related topic, for actually heavily related. It's more on the consequentialism versus non-consequentialism, and the position where you put the responsibility. Because what we see right now is that we're pushing on not putting responsibility on the people on the machine itself, because can you blame a machine? Everyone will agree that you can't, right? And then we'll try even to push on saying, oh, the people who have created the machine are not responsible. And then we're putting back the responsibility on the people who are using it. But can you be responsible for something that you don't even control?
I think it goes twofold. The first one, and I 100% agree with you, is that you cannot simply put the responsibility of the users. You know, the NRA, the big National Rifle Association in the US, that's what they do. Their main slogan is, guns don't kill people, people kill people. And in a way, that's true. Although without gun, would be a lot harder, you know? And I think I see this being a little bit the same. You know, it's too easy to put the responsibility on people who already have so many stuff to think about and who probably potentially don't understand how guns work, but clearly how algorithms work. They don't know. Putting the responsibility on them is way too easy. That's one thing. On the other hand, I also believe that if you really want to become a citizen of this world, you need to be mindful of the consequences of the stuff that you use. And in this environment, which, as I said, I assume to be educated about these questions, and now you are. You cannot leave this room saying you're not. You cannot simply use a tool and say, I didn't know. You need to pay attention. Because if you don't, nobody will.
And I refer to the sentence that you were saying related to the. Can you go back to your slide? Because I like to take the.
Definitely. I know. Fancy consultant slide. I mean, I would like to.
Because I don't want to hash the question that you raised.
This one?
Yeah. No, there was another.
Yeah.
Yes, that's one. Because we're technically saying that we kind of industrialize. You're trying to use people, right? So are we treating people as machine?
Yes.
Right? But isn't that just industrialization and a new form of industrialization?
It's a fair point, and a lot of people believe that what people call AI philosophy or AI ethics is just a new way of thinking about technology in general and how the machines have impacted the world in which we live. And I am part of this thinking. I don't believe that we need a specific thinking for AI. AI is just an epiphenomenon in tech, and AI itself, as you know, has been there for decades. The term itself was invented in 1955, but the studies have been going on for close to a century, potentially even more, depending on who you take into account or do not. And so you have different stuff. Then you have AI, then you have Gen AI. Tomorrow you're going to have agentic AI. The big boss of NVIDIA just said that the next thing is physical AI. It's going to be like your next buzzword AI, and then the next buzzword AI, and then something completely new. So I think that thinking about technology in general, and there's a Belgian philosopher, Gilbert Rotois, also a teacher at ULB, who said that when you think about ethics of technology, you always think about two things. One, metaphysics. Two, political philosophy. What does that mean? He means that when you think about the ethics of technology, you think about metaphysics in the way that what does it mean to be human in an era of technology? Let's take the example I gave. What does it mean to be in love in an era where people get married with machines? Should I go home tonight and tell my wife, I love you like a replica? I love you like an AI. I hear a lot about autonomous cars. Would you like to be told you're as autonomous as a car? You're as intelligent as a fridge? It's so odd. So that's one thing. The other thing is political philosophy. So what does it mean to be a society in the age of AI or technology? Let's go again. Democracy, as we know, has been under threats a lot in the past couple of weeks. One of the reasons is AI and technology and social networks, which has divided our society as it's, I wouldn't say never done before, because I'm no historian, so I wouldn't know. But indeed, it has big consequences. And so when you think technology, you always need to think these two stuff. What does it mean to be human with this new technology? And sometimes it's for the best. And also, what does it mean to be a society with this technology? Again, and maybe I'm just going to take a second here just to derail a bit. I'm not saying here that we should stop all efforts to push technology even further. You know, I have a friend of mine who gave birth a year and a half ago to a baby who, when he came out, was 4.8 kilos. For the woman who gave birth in the room, you're like, whoa, poor woman. For all the people, for all the others, it's a lot. It's a huge baby. Also, she didn't know, so she had to have emergency C-sec, blah, 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 and so on. She told me, you know, Louis, a century ago, I would have died. for sure, I would have died. So please, yes, technology, keep on working on the stuff that matters. The only thing that at the moment I'm quite afraid of is that there's a huge FOMO around AI. You know, it's like you need to do AI because you need to do AI. I see so many clients telling me like, we need to do some AI. Do AI, whatever that means. But it's just, at the moment, I think that's when we face a problem, the easy, immediate answer is AI or technology. And sometimes it isn't. When you have people who are struggling at school, I think the problem is not, the solution is not AI. Is how can we as a society carve out more time for the teachers to actually spend the time with these people? I think I can only speak for myself and potentially also for French philosopher Albert Camus, who addressed, I mean, after he won the Nobel Prize, he wrote a wonderful letter to his French teacher that he had when he was 12 or 10 or something. But the teachers that really mattered were the teachers who actually took the time. They said like, okay, you're gonna get it. And who were able to put that hand on your shoulder and help you get through. That is teaching. If you believe that you're a strong teacher because you go in front of your classroom and you deliver expertise, please be replaced by ChatGPT. Nobody needs you as a teacher. You may be a strong researcher or something and then do research. Don't be a teacher. And that's, I think technology helps you really ask the question of, okay, what is the metaphysics of teaching? Is it delivering expertise? I don't think so. I don't think that teaching is about delivering expertise. I think it's about helping people grow, understanding the vulnerabilities of people, especially the young ones, and helping them thrive in who they are. And that's not by delivering expertise. It's by taking time and building strong connections. Slightly derailed, but I think it's an important piece.
It's a great one, and I think that I'll conclude on that. It's probably a statement I'd like to get your view on it. Sometimes people tell me that I'm a bit too extreme when I say that we are basically building up the foundation for humankind alienation. But ultimately, we're not that far from my point of view, because the thing is that, and what you're saying was important. We're saying about control and responsibility. We're saying that we're telling you that you must be responsible for your act. But the thing is that the gap between the level of understanding that is required to be able to use those tools responsibly is becoming bigger and bigger. So we're creating a gap between the people who will be able to use tools and the ones who are able to build those tools and think those tools.
Yeah.
And we're creating just the two extremes, and we're increasing that gap where we have people that will just be there to execute and will say, pretending that will make their life easier, saying, oh, but forget about all those tasks and all the boring things that you have to do. We'll do it for you. Stop thinking and just do things. And please be responsible, but don't understand too much.
Yeah.
Where are we going?
I don't know. You've read 1984, so that's the terrible way. Hopefully, I think there's a bit of a balance, but it's like with everything. It's do we want to take action over it? Do we want to take control over it? But I think for your first stance, I fully agree with that. You know, usually when you have people telling you, don't worry about it, just use it, we'll worry about the rest. Yeah. Not so good.
They very did well.
Yeah. But, and usually that's the main argument that tech giants use at the moment and also they go to regulators saying that, no, but what we're building is way too complicated for you to understand. Let us do our thing. That doesn't look good. So I wouldn't go in that direction, ever. Then on the other hand, you cannot unnotice the fact that technology can also help us do some really painful tasks. What I just want to make sure is that it indeed helps us do these painful tasks. And there's a journalist in the US, and I'm not going to quote her well, I'm sorry, but she said something like, I expected technology to do my laundry and wash the dishes so that I could write poetry. At the moment, ChatGPT writes poetry, but it doesn't do the dishes.
Yeah.
So what do we want technology to do? There's a French philosopher called Simone de Beauvoir. She wrote a couple of great books, but one of them is Tous les hommes sont mortels, so all men are mortals. It's a story about someone who can not die. And at the moment that person asks a question which I think should help you when you design products that are supposed to help people gain time is, what do people do with all the time that they save? And it's a tough question, because if the time you save, you spend it on Candy Crush, you may not want to save that time. And I argue a lot with my father-in-law, who, by the way, I love a lot, but he's the kind of person that's on the highway, he drives 160 and I drive 110. And I always ask him, what do you do with that time that you won? You know, a bit burning the earth and the planet in which your grandchildren are going to live, but that's another topic. But what do you do with all the time that you save? And I'm going to say, I know. One, you play Candy Crush. Two, you wait. You wait for me to arrive because I drive slow. And so please do drive slow. And that doesn't seem to be a good argument because it still drives super fast. But what do people do with all that time that they save? It really struck me as a sentence of Simone de Beauvoir. It's just, I mean, she's a brilliant philosopher. I think everybody knew that. But I think it's tough, you know, especially right now in the 21st century. Yes, of course, we're going to run everywhere. We're going to save time. But to do what? And it's a tough question. I don't expect all of you to have an answer. But I don't have the answer right now. But at some point, I think it's the one we should all be asking ourselves, especially when you're building products that are supposed to help people save time. Then to do what?
Thank you.
As I said, I'm a philosopher. I just leave questions and then there you go.
Now I'll take off that mic and where's the first question? Okay. Seen Kevin just raising the hand.
So I have a question about that.
I can't hear
Okay, I have a question about how many people now are using ChatGPT to as a therapist.
It's a recording mic, but it's not an amplifying mic.
Yeah,
so
I know.
If you use it to speak louder, it doesn't work.
Okay.
You gotta
so
scream.
What do you think about the fact that many people now are using ChatGPT as a therapist, and also about the fact that there are many tools are being built like that, like AI therapist and so on? So, because it's so controversial, and I'm just curious.
So just to make sure, so you want to have my opinion on AI therapist and ChatGPT. This is terrible. So that's my short answer. The long answer is it's basically like, why do we do this? Two reasons. One, people use AI therapists because they're cheap. If they had the money, most of them would probably go see an actual therapist. So the real question is not, can ChatGPT be a good therapist? The real question is, how can we fund, where can we find the money so that the right people who actually need therapy can go and get proper therapy? That's the real question. Second thing is, people will tell you that they go to ChatGPT because ChatGPT will not judge them. And I get that. My wife is a psychologist by training. And then she decided that she wanted to do something else, but it's incredibly useful to have a psychologist as a wife. But anyhow, especially when you want to raise kids. But on a more serious note, a therapist will never judge you. That's basically the first thing that they learn. You know, you enter the, I don't know how you call it, but you enter the room, you're not judged. So people think that therapists will judge them. So the real question is not, is ChatGPT or the psychologist judging you? No. The real question is, how can people not feel vulnerable enough to enter the room of a therapist and start engaging with them, although it's for their own? And so I think that the point you raised is an incredibly good one, and it's an extremely important one, is what are the real questions? Is the real question, could ChatGPT be a good therapist? No, of course not. By design, it cannot. Also because, I don't know how many of you have done therapy. I have for quite a couple of years, so I'm really happy to share about it. But one of the big things that you're able to do in therapy session is that you engage. Literally, your body. You're there. You come into the room. You make the effort. You cry. It's difficult. But it's because you go through all these steps that in the end you recover. This is the journey of a patient in therapy. I would love to see the studies in a couple of years investigating the people who had therapy with ChatGPTs and AI and to have a proper look at what happened. And maybe I'm going to be proven completely wrong. And maybe it's going to be flagged that indeed they're really strong therapists and it helps dozens of people. And if indeed they do help these people, good. But I just want to make sure, I think these people, they they have a glimpse of what they think they can win. I don't think they have a glimpse at everything that they lose. And that might be actually the bigger deal. But the short answer is it's terrible.
I saw some hands waving here, there, and then afterward.
Hi.
Hi.
I love that we're still discussing ethics, by the way. And why I say still, because the world gone mad. And my question is, what's your view on the competitiveness? How do you think we should be able to still be competitive when clearly there is in parts of the world and just in general, not everybody is talking about ethics anymore, and it's the last point on the agenda. So how do you balance this, not regulations, not too much regulations, but still be competitive, especially with the latest geopolitical situation and the Draghi reports that came out on the European competitiveness, for example?
So I'm going to go, actually, you had the answer in your question, although you put a not just before, but I'll say no, regulations. And just before, just because, there's this sentence in American sports says, don't hate the player, hate the game. Facebook wants to make money, they make money, and most of the time, legally. Most of the time. Don't hate the player, hate the game. It's a capitalist company, they're here to make money, we get that. People need, at the end of the month, to get paid. A lot, but in the end, that's what they want. Don't hate the player, hate the game. There's a problem with the game. We need to frame that game a little bit better. And so that's why I strongly believe in regulations. Also because if you are a player, and there's been studies on this, if you're a player that want to make things right, you will always be slower and less competitive than the players who couldn't care less. And that's a problem. And that's what regulations are for. Another thing, which at the moment is not clear enough for the people, but maybe for some parts of the population in the medium, long run, is that having responsible products will be a competitive advantage. As more and more people become educated about AI and know that AI can be unpredictable, crazy, weird stuff, blah, 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 burning the earth, etc., people will say, okay, now I want to have a responsible product. Like today you have people who do not want to buy a t-shirt at €1. And these people are right, but these people are wealthy. It's always easy to have in mind the end of the world when you don't have to have in mind the end of the month. And I mean, I'm saying this, I'm highly paid at BCG, so I also get the irony of saying this. But that's something I think that we as wealthier people also have to have in mind and make that make that trade-off. So one, I think the wealthier people should stop accepting non-responsible products. But for the people who basically don't really have the choice, because at the end of the month, €1 is €1, then regulation should support these people. Exactly as we should have in food, exactly as we should have in fashion, and all those stuff. It's impossible to go to people who don't have a lot of money to say, don't buy Shein, don't buy Temu, etc. These people will, because this makes a huge difference at the end of the month. For me, and I assume for most of you, it's not the case. So let's embrace that change that we have, but yeah, also let's be careful on what we wish for. Sorry.
Yeah, so by the way, loved the presentation. Just one thing where I disagreed a little bit, so I wanted to dive a bit back into it. With the picture generation you showed. So I believe if we go out on the street now and ask people to draw a successful doctor, maybe they are less attractive, but most people would still draw a white male young doctor
100%.
there. And I know I heard it somewhere, probably some podcast, that AI just reflects society. If you have a biased and racist society, you will get biased and racist AI. So my question is, I think you said something like it's a poorly constructed tool. I hope I'm not misusing your words. In my opinion, it's not really poorly constructed. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. The problem is, how do you create something that's ethical with data that isn't? So my question, do you see a way to do this?
Two things. One, it's not because it does exactly what it's supposed to do that it's not poorly built. And I think that if indeed it does exactly what you expect to do, and this is what you expect it to do, it is poorly built. So I agree with everything you said. It's just that in the end we take different paths in the conclusion. But I fully agree with what you said. Indeed, if you go outside and if you know this exercise, close your eyes, imagine a CEO. Of course, it's a white dude, and it is terrible. And all of us are heavily biased. So I think it's a responsibility of people designing the product to be able to go one step further. Of yes, society is biased. Do I want my product just to be a product of society, or do I want to be like have the more ground, or just being better? So that's one thing. The other thing that I want people to understand is there is no such thing as unbiasedness. That does not exist. Everything you do is biased. However, you get to pick your biases. Let's take an example. We're going to build an algorithm that decides if people go to jail or don't go to jail. Okay? And we just got Tim, and we're not too sure. And so we put his file in the algorithm. The thing is, when we designed the algorithm, we had the choice. We could either maximize true positives, which means that no guilty people would escape, all the guilty people would be caught, maximize true positive, or we could minimize false positive, so making sure that we would have zero innocent going to jail. These two stuff, they are mutually exclusive. You cannot have both. Because, for example, we just got Tim, we got his file, 50-50. 50-50 chance, guilty, not guilty. Did his job brilliantly if he did, but 50-50. If you maximize true positive, you want to make sure that no guilty people gets away, he goes to jail. If you want to minimize false positive and make sure that zero innocent get jail time, he goes free. This is not a technological question. This is a moral one. That's what is the society that you want to build. And so I agree with you. We all have biases. What's important is that one, we are aware of them, and two, we decide what are the biases that we want to put in the tool. Maybe let's take another example. And sorry, it was supposed to be a short answer, but I'm giving you a big one. A couple of months ago, Google faced a huge backlash in Gemini because they tried to have an unbiased AI, image generation. And so people tricked it, and so they asked Gemini to produce the image of a Nazi soldier. And so Gemini produced image of black people. And when you know what the Nazis did to black people, it's a little bit of a sensitive topic, let's put it that way. And people screamed about it. And you're just like, yeah, but do you think it makes more sense to have 100% of white male doctors or to have one black Nazi soldier? Both make zero sense. It's just that in one way we're comforted in the biases that we have, and in another one it's less comfortable. What I want to mean is that in the end, the biases that you choose will define your product. And Google, kind of a weird and sad way, they just took a step back and say, oh, we're sorry, blah, 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 and don't worry, you'll all get your white doctors back. We're all going to be just fine. But both are insane. Both are insane. If you're a young daughter, if you're my daughter, she's 3.5, she goes to ChatGPT, she's thinking like, okay, what should I do? And so on. And the pictures that she receives are just heavily cliche for women. If that's what she wants to do, great. But what if she wants to be an engineer? What if she wants to be a doctor? And so on. These biases exist. You may have seen this scandal, I think it was in Austria, where I don't know how you say it in English, the organization that helps people find jobs, and when they get out of school, they installed an algorithm, and it was super heavily biased. And so all girls were prompted to go into marketing or care jobs in general, and males were prompted to work in engineer, med school, and business. And you just guys, 2024, I think. How can this still happen? So what I want to say is not build unbiased product. That is not possible. Just be okay with the biases that you're going to put in your product.
circle back for a second to the therapist
Yeah,
ChatGPT,
sure.
because I think it's a great example, right? I think like so you start off by saying like it's a terrible idea, and I think there's like something slightly, I don't know, reckless about the answer, just because.
100%.
And I don't mean any offense by it.
No,
but
no, no, go ahead.
It's just like, so firstly, like I've been through a lot of therapy as well, like 8, 9 therapists, and some of them are pretty bad, right? Some of them are really terrible. So humans have the same sort of tendency to screw things up when you're figuring out what to say to each person. Now, on the other hand, we're gonna trust these models to do really complicated, personalized diagnostics for some of the most complicated diseases in the world, right? So there's personalized medicine startups that are going for cancer diagnostics and actually tailoring really specific types of medicine so you can
Yeah.
actually give it. And they're cutting the cost of that by hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, right? And so I just wonder, like, when we're like, especially us product folks, we're always trying to push the limits of like, how do we build better? Sure, ethically, sure, but at the same time, these sort of more personable, sort of human ideas of how do we improve and how do we get a cheaper, faster, and better service like therapy to a larger number of people. I think I mean, I'm not saying it's going to work, and it's probably going to screw a lot of things up, but it's not necessarily the worst place to start trying to innovate. And I was just wondering, like, just to take the reflection a tiny bit deeper.
No, no. So indeed, my answer was willingly reckless to start with. Although I still stand by it, I still think it's not a bad idea. But I think we're not always asking the right questions. We have indeed terrible therapists, and that is true. I mean, and as I said, you know, if as a teacher you think that your job is to just deliver expertise, and then you're a terrible teacher, should that mean that we should have AI replacing you? No, we should have you replaced by good teachers. And so I think the question is not if we have bad therapists. I think what we should do is try to get rid of those and only train good ones. And I know that's easy, and it works in theory, but it's quite complicated to put it in practice. But I think that should be the actual answer. Going back to more like care in general and what AI can do, I think there's tons of stuff that AI is super strong, especially in the medical world. As I like to say, if tomorrow my doctor spots, you know, a mass or something in my neck or whatever and says, okay, you need to go do an MRI or a scanner or I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but he says you should do this. I go. Of course, I would like these machines to be augmented by AI. All the studies in the world show you that image and tumors recognitions are better when they are analyzed by AI. Of course, I want my doctor to be augmented by AI. But if this is indeed a cancer and I need a couple of weeks to get my stuff in order because I'm going to die, I want to make sure that it's not an AI delivering me that message. I want to make sure that's indeed that doctor. Although, and there's been a study showing that some doctors are not really empathetic and they're not really good at delivering these kind of messages. But does that mean that they should be replaced by AI? Or does that mean that we should train them better? Or maybe have specific people who are trained to deliver these kinds of messages? And I think this is the kind of question I want to trigger. And for therapy, I strongly believe, but again, that's, and I agree, really selfish, self-centered kind of way of my own experience with therapy, and also discussing with quite a lot of shrinks, is just, I think there's so much happening in the connection that you build with the people, and I think that we will lose a lot more by delegating this. As a society, I think we would lose a lot more by delegating this to machines rather than keeping it for human beings. But again, we'll see the studies in a couple of years because we will have AI therapists for sure.
Yeah, hi. My question is two-part. First of all, in answer to your thing as to why we would treat AI humanely, I think it's the same reason as with the images. Like, we know that the AI is being trained on data. So if it's going to train on us and our interactions, I'd rather train it to be polite and kind and educated just to give it those values. I don't know how many of the other people here treat it the same way, but that would be one of the...
So maybe short answer, not a lot. usually when I ask the people, why do you do this? I have not a lot of people
Really?
explaining
Okay.
to me, I'm training the AI because they're going to mimic what I do. So, not a lot.
Okay, good to know. And then the second thing is like AI is going to keep evolving. It's going to keep getting better and better at what it does. It is not limited by the human brain the way that our own intelligence is. So it's only a matter of time, I would assume, for AI to actually become better than the teachers, to actually have more emotional intelligence than a girlfriend or than even a therapist. What happens then?
You said I assume, and that's the moment that's the point I think we could only disagree, because and it's purely theoretical, and so I may be 100% wrong, you may be 100% right, or the other way around. But I believe that in stuff like love, in stuff like friendship, in stuff like therapy, and so on, there is something that is indestructible that you cannot just go into. We can put this in code, even if you're so much better. And there's two things to this. One, I genuinely believe that there's stuff that you cannot reduce to a couple of lines of code, and I'll give you an example in a second. And two, I want to believe that there is nothing to do. And I'm 100% aware that this is a personal bias. But as a father of 2 young kids, if indeed we're all going to end up like in the movie Her or in the movie Wall-E, where we just keep on interacting with screens and just forgetting about the bonds that we can build with human beings, I think this is terrible. But just to give you an example, I don't know if you've heard about, there's a show in French it's L'amour au premier regard. I think love at first sight. So it's basically two people who've never met, and they basically meet at the altar and they get married. It's a reality TV show. But scientists worked on them, on their profiles, and so scientifically these people should match perfectly together. Okay? Science says they're perfect for each other. We're going to put this on a show, blah, 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 but they will get married. Usually after a couple of seasons in the different countries in the world where this kind of stuff happens, 1 out of 10 marriages still holds. 9 out of 10 end up in divorce, which to be honest you would have expected. Because I think that love is something that with all the best algorithms, the best scientists and so on, it's just, there's this little thing. You've probably had, people that you, friends, wanted to hook you up with, and they said, oh, you're going to love him or love her, and you're going to, and you meet that person, you're just like, no. And then there's that person, and nobody really understands why, but you love her or you love him. And it's just because. Really, because. And I like to think that this is not to be reduced to something that a machine could understand. But it's, again, and I know, it's a bit of a philosophical, a bit of a romantic kind of standpoint. I want to believe that, because I also want to believe that this is what makes living fun. I mean, if everything can be computed and so on, what's the point? And that's where I believe that having less tech is potentially a better thing. But again, I may be 100% wrong.
So we'll have to conclude on that one. I'm sure we still have a lot of questions and debates that is going to happen, but unfortunately, we got the pizza delivered, and I heard it's still better to eat them warm than cold. So as practice as usual, before we clap, I prefer to give the instructions because afterward, no one listens to me anymore. So there is a lot of room, but they are taken by chairs. So if you can just help to move them a bit on the sides, so then we have all space, okay? So we first clap and then we do that, okay? Thanks.
And what
Thanks. And then we forget, you had the slide with the 2 books that you wrote, but
Yes.